Today we're going to be discussing fascism. That's right, 4 reasons why I think fascism is a left-wing ideology. Here's what we're going to do today. We're going to first come up with a working definition of fascism, right? It can be a little bit hard to nail down at times, but there are common characteristics. We're going to define those, and then we're going to get into some, reasons why fascism is a left-wing ideology, right? That it bears almost no resemblance to conservatism. What is fascism? All right, well, we've got 3 countries to work with, and we've got a lot of fascist thinkers and what they wrote and what they describe fascism as to work with here. And so we're going to use that. And the 2 countries we're going to talk the most about are Nazi Germany and Mussolini's fascist Italy. So what's some of the criteria that define fascism? One of the first one is this idea of nationalism, right? Some people even say tribalism, but it was the idea that the people are the state and the state is the people. But it's the idea that whoever is essentially running the nation is the representation of the national will. And therefore, they have an extreme amount of authority in order to push through what it is they want from a legislative perspective, what it is they want from an overall sense of how industry is going to be run, about how education is going to be run, right? So there was that authoritative nature within fascism. Militarism is more this idea that you're using what you consider to be almost like the moral authority of war in order to not only address foreign policy, but domestic policy as well. Right? And you see this terminology used a lot, the war on drugs, the war on poverty. It's this idea that in a time of war, there's a national crisis where everybody gets together in order to work for a singular purpose. And a lot of people within fascist ideology liked that sort of arrangement of society during wartime, and they wanted to keep that arrangement during peacetime as well in order to solve other problems. Another one that you might find somewhat shocking, especially since communists claim to hate fascists so much, collectivism. Collectivism was a key component of fascist ideology. But if you actually look at what Hitler said, he essentially stated that provided that an industry or provided that a business was working in accordance with the national will, what was the national will? Whatever Hitler said the national will was, then he would allow them to operate. But the moment they didn't operate under his rules, or the moment they weren't producing in accordance with what he thought they should be, he would take them over. Communism is the abolition of the private ownership of the means of production. Okay, someone explain to me how nationalizing industry is a right-wing political ideology. You will not find free market advocates or capitalists arguing for the government takeover of industry. They were also big on purging the authority of the church. They did not like the idea of the church because the church represented a different authority that was then competing with the state. So for those people who go out there and say that, Hitler was actually, pro-Christian, no, he wasn't. Everything that I just described fall more in line with what we call either a socialist style economy or a corporatist economy. And the socialists will come back and say, well, no, that's not what we believe. We believe in the workers owning all the means of production. Again, a fascist would say, yes, so do we, and there's no difference between the people and the state. Mussolini's idea was if we really want to push socialism, then we're going to have to take more of a nationalist approach rather than an international approach, because he didn't feel that the international approach was getting him anywhere. Why was there so much hatred between socialists and fascists? They were competing for the same people for political power. Right? You saw people that were socialists one day that were fascists the next day. You saw people that were fascists that became socialists. That's because there wasn't a huge difference with respect to their overall objectives when it came to running the economy or how they viewed human interaction or class. If you look at a lot of the components of the New Deal, you see a lot of that same left-wing ideology, even almost kind of fascist idea of how to plan the state. And one of the common statements was, we planned in war, we can plan in peace. Again, that goes back to this whole idea of, well, if we can, win World War II, then surely we can beat poverty. And the same sort of national action and government controls and rationing and government direction of the economy that we use to win a war can also be used to solve these other problems. This myth that you have been force-fed through popular culture, through academia, through the media, that fascism bears some resemblance to right-wing conservatism in the United States because we're patriotic, because we support the military or the police, is absurd. You line up the Republican platform and show me all the things that you think are fascist in there. I'll line up all the Democrat platform and put it right next against the Italian fascist platform, and we'll see how much of that adds up. When you're talking about the right within the American political tradition, fascism bears little to no resemblance. When you're talking about modern leftist progressivism, starting in the early 20th century up to now, you're going to see a whole lot that corresponds with fascism in the way that they see people, in the way that they see authority, in the way that they see organizing the economy, in the way that they see property rights, in the way that they see to provide healthcare, in the way that they see to provide education. You're going to see a whole lot of similarities.